I cannot believe this! I'm so frustrated! You're so stupid, you idiot!
Hurry up and put the seatbelt on!
Child Abuse and Neglect, a prevention and reporting guide for caregivers and other professionals who work with children. Everyone agrees that child abuse is bad, both for the child and for society at large. Yet many children continue to be subjected to physical, sexual, emotional abuse and neglect. Caregivers, teachers, and other professionals who work with children can play a significant role in stopping abuse. What can they do? Volume 1 of this two-part video series is directed at daycare providers, home care providers, teachers, school nurses, and others who work with children. It defines abuse, forms of abuse, abuse indicators, causes and effects of abuse, reporting abuse, and helping abuse victims. What is child abuse? Let's define child abuse in its different forms.
Most often, physical abuse occurs in a disciplinary context. A parent is trying to discipline the child for some perceived misbehavior and will strike at the child with a belt or a shoe or an extension cord or a hanger, or all of the instruments that parents use to discipline their kids.
Physical abuse is, in essence, an assault, a physical assault against a child, usually that results in some kind of injury, either something that is observable or something that is internal, but is suspected because of the behavior of the child. It's committed non-accidentally.
In some states, the law has been changed to imply great physical harm. My definition of great physical harm is anything that marks a child. So I choose to have that definition.
I cannot believe this! I'm so frustrated! You're so stupid, you idiot!
Emotional abuse is one of the more difficult forms of abuse to define, and it is the least reported form of abuse.
Emotional abuse involves anything from yelling and screaming, constantly putting the child down, telling them that they're no good, you never wanted them, ignoring, which is the counterpart of abuse, which is emotional neglect, where the child just basically doesn't exist. They don't get any hugs, they don't get any recognition, so they're either attacked emotionally or they're ignored.
Exposing the child to domestic violence, for example, is a form of emotional abuse as well. Exposing the child to parental substance abuse in a really an unfit environment is a way of stunting the child's emotional growth. But many of these things are very difficult to define and often hard to prove in court. Sexual abuse involves the exploitation of a child by an adult for the gratification of the adult's own sexual needs. And the kinds of behaviors that we're talking about here can range from intercourse to fondling to oral sex to exhibitionism and so forth.
Pornography is included in the definition of sexual abuse. It would be considered sexual exploitation, as would prostituting a child, sending a child out to earn money. Physical neglect is really considered child abuse also. It is depriving the child of basic essentials, basic needs, under circumstances where the caregiver has the opportunity to provide these things and just chooses not to.
Neglect involves an inattention to a child's basic needs, the child's need for food, for shelter, for clothing, for stimulation, for nurturance.
What common indicators of child abuse are exhibited by children and abusers?
The indicators of physical abuse are injuries, and teachers need to be able to differentiate between what would be sustained accidentally as opposed to inflicted. So you look at a number of things. You look at where is the injury.
Do you mind if I lift up your shirt a
For
little bit?
example, the most common place that injuries are inflicted is on the back, between the neck and the knees. It's not common for a child to injure himself on his back. The type of injuries, where they are of a specific shape, like something that would be caused by a ring or by a hairbrush that have a specific outline. Burns are always reason to be concerned, particularly when they're in odd patterns or in odd places like the bottom of feet.
And one of the things that we have observed is the way children play.
I did it first to me and then I did it.
Thinking that, well, when children come to school, all they do is play, play, play. But that is how children act out what they feel. And many times when they go, they don't even have to go to the dollhouse anymore. They can play with one another. They can be very abusive, to one another.
Behavioral indicators of emotional abuse would be a lot of nail biting, rocking, hurting oneself, self-mutilation, pulling out hair. We see sometimes middle school children, 12, 13, 14, sucking their thumbs. So these are behaviors we wouldn't expect from children of this age. That's what we need to look for, is the
Sexually abused children can present in school with some physical complaints. We've had a number of cases that have come in picked up by teachers because the kids are uncomfortable, they can't sit, they're very uncomfortable because they've been raped. Most children don't present that way. Going from being bright, involved, articulate kids to being regressed, secretive, ashamed, distracted, not learning, grades falling.
We see a lot of children who are acting out sexually with other kids, and it can take the form of harassment. It could take the form of making, crude comments to other kids. It could take the form of goosing them, of fondling them, other kids, and we see that very commonly. And often the kids who are exhibiting that kind of behavior have themselves been mistreated in some way, often sexually, and now they are acting out against other kids.
We've had students that were deaf the first 2 or 3 years of their life. Parents knew something was wrong, but they never took the steps to find out what the problem was. Because the child is not hearing, the child can't see, the child needs vitamins because they're eating cereal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're not eating, their diet is not adequate. Children come to school with dirty clothes on, haven't had a bath in days, or the same clothes on for the last few days. It's a lot. It breaks your heart to see these kinds of things, but it happens every day.
What causes people to abuse children? What are the short and long-term effects?
Hurry up and put the seatbelt on!
The vast majority of problems that we see in society today were somehow attributed to the upbringing of the individual who is causing those problems.
A parent who was sexually abused as a child often has problems managing their own sexual behavior with their kids. So clearly one of the roots is the manner in which the parents themselves were raised.
There tends to be a relationship, a correlation between poverty and stress, which is the #1 cause of child abuse, which is the #1 factor in child abuse. And obviously, if people can't make ends meet, that's going to add to their stress and could contribute to a higher rate of child abuse, getting their frustrations and anxieties out.
Personally, have not met the parent who can manage a serious crack cocaine, methamphetamine, or heroin addiction and adequately provide for their kids. It's just too demanding. And then there are all the side effects associated with the drugs as well. A person who has a serious crack cocaine problem is going to be beset by paranoia, by irritability, by mood swings that also pose a risk to their children.
Children use a lot of the today words such as well, my father slangs dope. You have to check their backpacks because they may have paraphernalia, because they, they don't know what they have. They just grab stuff and fill up the backpack.
The behavior, regardless of the culture, has to fit what the requirements are in terms of reporting in that particular state.
In some countries, corporal punishment is very widely employed, and in fact it's encouraged. So when these families come to the United States and they're told that they're no longer allowed to hit their children with belts or to do the forms of discipline that they've done in their countries of origin, they often are resistant to that, or in many cases they simply don't know that that's the rule and need to be educated.
Agencies will attempt to work with the parents if their behavior is cultural, if their behavior is something that has been brought from another country.
Now